What's up everyone? In today's video I'm going to be installing the CPE Stage 2 motor mount, and since I'm in Oklahoma and we have tornadoes, we have a storm shelter, so I'm going to use that to my advantage and just pull the car under it so I can stand up while working on it, and then also blocked from the wind because it's super windy today. So let's go ahead and go down there. I'll show you what all comes in the package and then we'll get started on the install. So here's what comes in the package. Sorry, it's probably a little echoey in here, but they give you a sticker. That's always nice. Sometimes I even get more excited about the stickers than the actual product when they give you stuff, but you get a whole instruction booklet with everything you need to know, what it all comes with and all that. And then down here you have the actual mount itself. It is a two-piece mount, so here is the part with the actual bushing in it. This is the top part, I believe, that goes on there. And then there's also this part, which is solid. It has no bushing. And this replaces the factory bushing and it's solid. So it's kind of a new type of design, but it should help a lot with wheel hop and torque steer. So we will go test it after I put it on to see how much of a difference it makes. So let's go ahead and get started installing it. So the first thing we'll need to do is take off this downpipe bracket, which will be a bolt here, there should be one there, I believe, there's one back there, and then there's the two up on the top. Good thing I'm doing this because mine is missing a bolt right there. It's just completely gone. This one is about to come off, and yeah, it's missing, I think, yeah, it's missing something there. So yeah, the previous owner installed a downpipe and I guess didn't put thread locker, or even they might have not even put it back on. But I'll get started taking that off. I don't really have anywhere that I can put the camera, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Just take all the bolts off and then you should be able to get the bracket off. After you get the downpipe bracket off, you want to loosen this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and this bolt right here, and then this will get loose, and then we'll be able to take the chassis mounting bolt off, and then this whole thing will kind of slide out together. Just kind of have to wiggle it out, and then we'll be able to put in new CPE Stage 2 motor mount. And also all the bolts for the downpipe bracket were 13 millimeter, and there's also these were 15 millimeter, I believe, and then the bolts right here for the mount are also 15 millimeter. And one of the bolts up here was really hard to get out. I soaked it in WD-40 like 3 different times and was finally able to get it out by putting a pipe around the ratchet to get enough leverage. And then these I'm just having to use like an open-end wrench and stick it in there, and then I'm just hitting it with this mallet really hard over and over and over and over, and they're finally starting to come loose. But I think the previous owner might have done a motor mount and then put the stock one back in, because I can tell that this stuff has been messed with and it might have been over torqued. I'm not sure, but the CPE says to torque it to 85 foot-pounds when we're done. So I'm just going to get the rest of these bolts out and then we will pull the motor mount out and put in the new one. So once you've got the stock motor mount out, it will be time to put in the new CPE mount. It took me 2 days to get all of the bolts out of this motor mount, and it's been by far like the hardest, most annoying install I've had to do, just because I don't know if it's just because this car is old and the previous owner drove it in the winter, or if it's because like they had done a motor mount before and taken it out and like cross-threaded the bolts or over-torqued them. I don't know. It took me so long to get these out. Even the bolt right here, I had to put a wrench in there and jack the car up by the end of the wrench, and the car was like, it had lifted the suspension up before it finally broke loose and came out. And then I had to go buy a breaker bar to get this one out, but it came out pretty easy with the breaker bar. I just didn't have a socket to get it out. But after that is all out, I'm So glad I was able to get that all out. It was really annoying for me, but I've seen other installs on newer cars where it's super easy for them. So here is the next step. The next step is installing, like putting the two-piece mount together before we put it in the car. So here's the orientation that it goes in from the top, and it will go into the car like this. So we'll slide it up in there and put it in like that. But you put it together loosely, just tighten this by hand. I can loosen that. See, you put the flat washer, then the crush washer, and then the bolt, and then this bolt goes inside of there like that. And then this is all ready for installation, and then next just slide this up in there, and then we'll put the other bolts in. Also, don't forget to put a little bit of blue Loctite on all of the bolts. It says in the instructions that it's recommended to put blue Loctite on all of the bolts. Next, you take this short bolt with this lock washer on, and it goes right here on the driver's side hole of the mount, right there, and it will go in like this. I can't do it because I don't have a tripod down here, but you just put that in there and tighten it, just hand tighten, and keep everything loose until all of the bolts are in, and then you can start to go back and tighten them all down. So here is the first bolt that you put in right here, and this one is still loose. Then you move over to this side and put in this top bolt, which was really hard for me, but I ended up using an open end wrench like this and sticking it over on the other side of the downpipe, and you just have to keep going in and out since I don't have one of those like ratcheting type wrenches. I don't know what they're called, like box wrenches or something like that. And then after you have that one in, you put in this one right here. And then the last one is going to be this bolt right here. You just kind of have to grab the engine over here and pull it back a little bit. And if you can use two hands, you can pull the engine back and align that hole and then put in the factory bolt. So once I get all those bolts in, I'm going to show you which ones you torque down and which ones just need to be tightened. So there's an order that you have to tighten all of the bolts in, and these are just the bolts that you tighten just by hand, as tight as you can get them by hand without like damaging anything. You start with the driver's side mount, the driver's side screw, which is this one right here. Then you move on to the top screw or bolt, which is this one right here. And then you'll move on to the front one, which is this one right here. Then you'll use an Allen key to hold the bolt over here and torque this to 80 foot-pounds. And then you will torque this bolt right here also to 80 foot-pounds. Now that everything is tightened and torqued down, this bolt right here and this bolt right here both torqued to 80 foot-pounds. Now we need to put the downpipe bracket back in, which I can't show you because it's actually kind of tricky to do, so I won't be able to do it with one hand, but you kind of assemble it how it is, and that piece right there will go on top of this, and you kind of have to slide it in there all at the same time, kind of like that, and then just hold it with one hand and then screw all of the bolts in. And this really isn't necessary that I've read on some of the like tips on how to put in the motor mount. Like some people just leave this out, but I'm going to put it back in, and mine was missing a few bolts anyways, but I'm just going to put it back in and I'll show you what it all looks like once it's finished, and then we'll go take it for a test drive. So here's what it looks like when everything is finished. All of these bolts are tightened down with thread locker. I got this one tightened with the bolts on top, and all of the bolts are in the right positions for the motor mount and torqued down. You can see that one there. So now I'm going to go let it warm up and take it for a test drive, as well as I'm going to try to show you the vibrations caused by this at idle and when revving it. I didn't really film a before, but I'll kind of give you my thoughts on how much it is, if it's unbearable or not. But also another thing is this motor mount takes 1,000 miles to break in, so it'll be a little bit stiffer and have more vibrations towards the beginning of the driving, but after 1,000 miles it should smoothen out. And something I want to mention is CPE did a really good job on also just like the build quality. Everything seems like really great as far as build quality and everything goes, but the instructions are really nice. They have little tips here and there on like what kind of tool to use, and the pictures are really good for showing you what to do and all that. I had already watched several videos and stuff, so I'm pretty familiar on how to put it in. But if you were someone who had no idea what you were doing, the instructions would help a lot. They're really detailed and really well put together instructions, as like, because some things don't have really good instructions. So that's a good thing. If you don't know what you're doing, you can look at the instructions and they're really helpful. So let's get started with the test drive, and we'll look at the vibrations first. So here is the first startup with the CPE Stage 2 motor mount. Definitely feel more vibration. It doesn't really shake the whole car. If I feel it around, oh yeah, you definitely feel it on the steering wheel. So yeah, it is, you can kind of feel it in the seat too. It is, it's definitely not unbearable for me, because I kind of like the more aggressive feel. I'm gonna let it warm up real quick and then we'll rev it, but it definitely does shake a little bit more, but it kind of sounds cooler too. It almost sounded like, when I first started it up, it sounded more like deep sounding, I guess, just because you kind of feel the vibration coming through. Okay, so when it just like revved up a little bit, just because my downpipe messes with stuff until I get a tune, but it shook the car and it kind of sounded like a hard bass was hitting. So once the RPM drops, I'll rev it up a little bit. But yeah, it definitely is a lot stiffer. But I'll do an update on this whenever it's broken in about 1,000 miles. So now that it lowered to 1,000 RPM, it is shaking a lot more. Like, I can feel it in the back of the seat. It almost feels like a massage. Like, it's definitely there. I think a passenger could get in the car and notice that something's different than just a normal car, other than the exhaust. So I'm gonna give it a few revs. Oh yeah, I don't know, maybe, let's see if you can hear that. So right like 1,100, 1,200 RPM, it definitely is like right here, if I hold it, you can hear the plastic trim shaking. Just like it feels like it's hitting harder than the actual bass in this stereo, or like this subwoofer actually does. Like, it's definitely there. I'll make sure to do a review on this 1,000 mile update once it's broken in. But if you don't like harsh vibrations, or you like to have a baby in the car or something like that, you probably wouldn't want to opt for this one. You'd probably want to go for another motor mount, which all of them do have to break in. But I know after like doing some research, that the Mountoon motor mount, I think, is one of the softer ones, but it still does a great job getting rid of the wheel hop. So yeah, when you get higher in the RPM, there's a really slight, maybe, I don't even know, I don't really remember what it felt like beforehand, but once you get above 1,100 RPM, 1,500, I mean, you really can't really tell the difference. It's a little bit more vibration, but I think the most when you're going to feel it is when you're going to be like letting off the clutch into first gear. Just right here, right when I rev it right there, you get a really harsh vibration. And at idle, like, I'm almost already kind of used to it, but it's not too bad. I'm sorry I'm taking a long time to describe this. I'm just trying to give you my thoughts, because it's kind of hard because you can't feel it in the video. But for me, if you like the aggressive feel, I don't think it's a problem. But if you're gonna be daily, like, if you daily drive this with a kid in the car, or like a baby, or just someone who doesn't like vibrations that much, I don't think this is the best option. That's one of the stiffer options you can get. But let's go ahead and take it for a test drive and see how it feels when driving, and also test with the torque steer and wheel hop. Sorry for this bad angle. I just have my phone on the mount that I use for like music and that type of stuff, just for like when driving. But I'm gonna have it here just so I can start and stop the recording without having it on like a tripod in the back. But I'm gonna go for some test drives. I'm just gonna start with like some normal driving, And then I'm going to go to a back road and try launching it a few times and shifting hard, and we will see the difference. So I'm going to roll out of my driveway real quick here without trying to scrape, even though I'm not lowered. If I go like straight down, I can still scrape. So when I'm lowered, I'm going to have to work on that. All right. So I don't know if you can even hear me, but it's not even, so when you go from neutral to first gear just by letting off the clutch slowly, there's even less of a vibration just when revving it in neutral. So it's actually not that bad when you're letting off the clutch. But when driving, I do notice like a slight, like a little bit more vibration, but it's not too bad. When you let off the clutch to start going, it's the vibration, like you feel it for like maybe a second or less, but it's not actually that bad. I really don't have a problem with it. So really idle is kind of when it vibrates the worst. But I do notice that it's a lot easier to, when you let off the clutch, it's way more smoother feeling. Like other than the vibration, it goes into gear a lot smoother. And then also shifting from first to second, and it like the whole car, like if you don't let the clutch out smooth on the stock rear motor mount, you kind of feel a little bit of a jerk. But I kind of let it out fast and not very smooth, and I could hardly even tell that I shifted. So I can already tell that it's a lot easier to shift smoothly. So yeah, you probably could hear that right there. That was going from neutral to first gear and letting off the clutch slowly, and you definitely could feel a vibration in the back of the seat. But this is just neighborhood driving, just really slow. So I'm about to go on a main road right now, and I'll just kind of not like launch it, but I'll just get on it a little bit to see how much of a difference it makes. But overall, I feel like I like it a lot better just because I kind of like the more aggressive race car-y feeling. But I would definitely recommend it if you like that. And at idle right now, I do feel a slight increase in vibration. So doing just a small little pull like that, not very aggressive, it felt like when you first get on the throttle, it almost feels like there's more torque. Obviously there's not, but it kind of hits you a little harder. It almost feels faster. It's not, but it kind of gives you the illusion that you are going faster. And shifting was a lot smoother. It's a lot easier to shift smoother, and it just feels a little bit more quick. It just feels like you could get up and go whenever you want without having like that jerk, like the jerkiness and like lag of the stock motor mount. But the vibrations aren't that bad when driving. I hardly even notice it. It's only when you're going from taking off from first gear. So I like it overall. I think it improves the car a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the road where I'm going to launch it, and then I will restart the video once we get there. So I am here on this back road where I can safely launch it. So let's go ahead and launch. I'm just going to rev it up just a little bit, not something too aggressive, and I'll shift really hard and floor it and see if we get any wheel hop. Alright, so I felt absolutely no wheel hop whatsoever, and that was full throttle in second and third. So it definitely did a lot better job of that. I did feel a little bit of torque steer, but nothing too bad. And I kind of like that. Gear is fun. But yeah, it is a huge improvement. So it definitely makes the car a lot more enjoyable and fun. And launching it was really easy. Overall, it felt really good. So I will go ahead and stop the video here, and I'll end it when I get back home and give you my last thoughts on the motor mount, and we'll end the video there. So for my final thoughts, I would definitely recommend this motor mount to anyone who doesn't really care about the vibrations. It makes the car so much more fun to drive. The shifting is a lot more crisp and smoother. Launching it and flooring it is a lot better. There's no wheel hop. It's so much... There is more vibration, but I just feel like it's more fun to drive. You feel more in contact with the road. So that's pretty much my thoughts on it. The install was a little hard just because my bolts were stuck for whatever reason. I don't know why. But that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.